Picture, if you can, a structure so vast that it dwarfs mountains. A vessel so immense that entire city districts could fit within its armored hull. 8 kilometers from its prow to its stern, over a kilometer wide at its broadest point, displacing billions of tons of adamantium and ceramite. This is an Imperial battleship, and for the hundreds of thousands of souls who call it home, it is not merely a warship, it is their entire world. The Emperor-class battleship, one of the most common capital ships in the Imperial Navy, is a monument to both human achievement and human suffering. Its Gothic architecture reaches toward the void like a cathedral built for war, its towers and buttresses festooned with gargoyles, aquillas, and the skulls of saints. Every surface is engraved with prayers, every bulkhead blessed with oils, every corridor a processional route for the faithful. The ship is not simply a machine, but a sacred relic, a temple that happens to carry enough firepower to reduce continents to ash. To step aboard such a vessel is to enter a realm governed by rules that have remained unchanged for 10,000 years. The Imperium does not innovate, it preserves. The battleship you board today operates on principles first laid down during the Great Crusade, maintained through ritual and rote rather than understanding. The tech priests who tend its machinery do not repair it so much as appease it, offering prayers to machine spirits and anointing cogitators with sacred oils. Every system, every weapon, every light in every corridor exists because someone, somewhere, is performing the correct ritual at the correct time. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Before we can understand what it means to live aboard such a vessel, we must first grasp its sheer scale. An Emperor-class battleship is home to somewhere between 250,000 and 1 million souls, depending on which records you consult and how generously you define the word soul. Some of these are officers, educated on naval academies and bred for command. Others are skilled crew, trained for years in the operation of specific systems. Many more are simply bodies, pressed into service from whatever world the ship happens to be orbiting, given the most basic training, and put to work hauling ammunition or shoveling fuel until they die. The ship is divided into distinct regions, each a world unto itself. The command decks occupy the upper reaches, where air is filtered and recycled until it is almost clean, where the lighting is steady, and where the temperature is kept at levels that approach comfort. Here, in spaces that would be considered luxurious by the standards of most Imperial worlds, the ship's senior officers plan campaigns, analyze data, and make the decisions that determine whether the vessel lives or dies. Below the command decks lie the gun decks, vast arterial spaces that run nearly the length of the ship. Here, macro cannons the size of hab blocks are, loaded and fired by crews who number in the hundreds per weapon. The shells these guns fire are as large as tanks, weighing dozens of tons apiece, and must be manhandled into position by work gangs straining against chains and pulleys. The noise when the guns fire is beyond description, a thunderclap that rattles teeth and bursts eardrums even through the protection of the gunroom's armored walls. Deeper still are the engineering sections, where the ship's plasma drives burn with the fury of captive stars. These regions are the domain of the Adeptus Mechanicus, forbidden to ordinary crew except when their labor is required. The tech priests who rule here are more machine than human, their bodies rebuilt with augmetic enhancements that allow them to interface directly with the ship's systems. They command armies of servitors, those pitiful creatures who were once human but are now little more than biological machinery, their minds wiped and replaced with simple programming that allows them to perform repetitive tasks without rest or complaint. And below even the engineering decks, in the deepest reaches of the hull, are the lower decks, the underbelly, the forgotten spaces where the majority of the crew actually lives. Here, in darkness, illuminated only by flickering lumens and the occasional burst of flame from a malfunctioning system, tens of thousands of menial workers exist in conditions that would shame a prison world. They sleep where they work, often literally. curled up in maintenance alcoves or beneath humming machinery. They eat rations that are barely nutritious, drink water reclaimed from waste systems, and breathe air so thick with particulates that every breath is an effort. This is the reality of life aboard an Imperial battleship. It is a place of extremes, where admirals dine on fine wines while ratings starve in the holds, where navigators with mutation-twisted bodies guide the ship through the warp, while bondsmen scrub blood from the deck with their bare hands, where chaplains preach the Emperor's mercy, while commissars execute the faithless without hesitation. It is, in short, the Imperium in miniature, a perfect microcosm of the galaxy-spanning empire that created it. In the darkness between the stars, these floating cities wage war on a scale that beggars imagination. Their weapons can crack continents, their shields can withstand the fury of dying stars, and their crews endure conditions that would break lesser beings. But they endure nonetheless because they must. Because to fail is to doom not just themselves, but the worlds they protect. And because the Imperium knows no other way. The command deck of an Emperor-class battleship is a marvel of both engineering and artistry. Situated high in the ship's superstructure, it occupies a space that could house a small cathedral, and indeed, its design deliberately evokes such comparisons. The ceiling arcs overhead in Gothic vaults, supported by buttresses carved with the names of saints and heroes. Brass and gold filigree adorns every surface, and the air carries the scent of incense from the numerous braziers that burn at strategic intervals, their smoke rising to vents that carry it away before it can become a hazard. At the heart of this space sits the command throne, a massive construction of carved wood, precious metals, and sacred relics. From this throne, the ship's captain directs all operations, surrounded by a carefully choreographed ballet of subordinates, each attending to their assigned duties with practiced precision. The captain himself, typically a veteran of decades of service, holds absolute authority aboard the vessel. His word is law, his decisions unquestioned. He is lord of his domain in the truest sense, and his crew are his subjects, bound to him by oaths as sacred as any feudal compact. Surrounding the captain are his senior officers, each responsible for a critical aspect of the ship's operations. The first officer, second in command and heir apparent to the captaincy, coordinates the efforts of the various departments. The Master of Ordnance oversees the gun decks and weapon systems, ensuring that every cannon, every lance, every torpedo tube is ready to speak death to the Emperor's enemies. The Master of the Vox controls all communications, both internal and external, managing the constant flow of information that keeps the ship functioning. The Sensors Officer monitors the arrays that sweep space for threats and opportunities, translating the raw data into tactical information that the command staff can use. The Master of the Helm, working in concert with the ship's navigator, actually steers the massive vessel through both real space and the warp, a task that requires not only skill, but also an almost mystical understanding of the ship's character and capabilities. Each of these officers commands hundreds or thousands of subordinates, creating a hierarchy that extends down through multiple layers of authority. The captain's stateroom, adjacent to the command deck, is a space that defies the cramped reality of shipboard life. Vast bedchambers, private offices, and even recreational spaces are set aside for the vessel's commander. Fine furniture, imported from worlds across the sector, fills rooms decorated with artwork and relics. Wine cellars stock vintages from hundreds of different planets. Personal servants, often drawn from the captain's homeworld, or recruited from among the most trustworthy crew, attend to every need. This luxury is not simply indulgence, though there is certainly an element of that. It serves a purpose within the rigid social structure of the Imperial Navy. The captain must be seen as separate from and above the common crew, a figure of authority and power whose very presence inspires both respect and fear. The grandeur of his quarters reinforces this separation. creating a psychological distance that makes it easier for him to make the brutal decisions that command sometimes requires. Lower-ranking bridge officers, those commanders and lieutenants who have proven their worth but have not yet ascended to senior positions, occupy quarters that are comfortable by military standards but austere compared to the captain's realm. Private cabins with actual beds, functioning sanitation facilities, and dedicated workspaces are luxuries beyond the dreams of most of the crew. These officers dine in their own mess, separate from both the senior officers and the enlisted ranks, maintaining the stratification that defines naval culture. The gulf between these senior personnel and the ordinary crew is profound and intentional. On a vessel where hundreds of thousands must work in coordination, where split-second decisions can mean the difference between survival and destruction, there can be no question of authority, no democratic debate about orders. The hierarchy is absolute, enforced not just by tradition and regulation, but by the ever-present threat of violence. Commissars patrol the decks, authorized to execute anyone who shows signs of cowardice, insubordination, or heresy. Armsmen maintain order through force, their shotguns and shock mauls ready to suppress any hint of unrest. This system has endured for millennia because it works, at least by the Imperium standards. Ships function, battles are fought, and the endless war continues. But the human cost is staggering. For every officer who enjoys the privileges of rank, thousands toil in conditions that would be considered inhumane on even the most backward Imperial world. They do so because they have no choice, because the Imperium offers no alternative, and because to question the system is to invite swift and terminal punishment. For the vast majority of crew aboard an Imperial battleship, life is a grinding routine of labor, sleep, and survival. The day, if one can call it that, in the timeless environment of a void ship, where artificial cycles replace natural ones, is divided into watches. Each crew member is assigned to a specific watch, typically 8 hours of work, followed by 8 hours of personal time. Though on vessels short of crew, these periods can stretch to 12 or even 16 hours of continuous labor. The nature of that labor varies dramatically depending on one's position and skills. Ratings assigned to the gun decks spend their watches in the cavernous spaces surrounding the macro cannons, performing the back-breaking work of ammunition handling. Shells weighing as much as 70 tons must be moved from magazines deep in the ship to the weapons themselves, a process that involves dozens of workers operating winches, pulleys, and crude motorized trolleys. The shells are loaded into the guns through a process that has changed little in thousands of years. The breech is opened by teams pulling on massive chains. The shell is rolled into position, and the breech is closed again, all while gun captains shout orders and petty. Officers enforce discipline with shock prods and curses. When the guns fire, the noise is apocalyptic. Even with hearing protection, the concussion is enough to cause nosebleeds and disorientation. Crew who work the gun decks for extended periods often lose their hearing entirely, communicating through hand signals and written notes. The heat from the weapons is intense enough that ventilation systems struggle to keep up, leaving the spaces sweltering and filled with the acrid stench of burned propellant and ozone. Other crew are assigned to maintenance duties, an endless task on a ship this vast and ancient. Pipes leak, conduits fail, servitors malfunction, and the general wear and tear of operation ensures that there is always something requiring repair. Work gangs move through the ship carrying tools and supplies, guided by tech adepts who consult ancient manuals and machine spirits before authorizing any modification. The superstition surrounding these repairs is profound. Nothing can be simply fixed. It must be done in accordance with ritual, with prayers spoken and oils applied, with the proper forms observed, even if no one present understands why those forms matter. Sanitation crews have perhaps the least enviable assignment aboard the vessel. They maintain the waste reclamation systems that process human refuse into potable water, fertilizer, and raw organic material for the ship's hydroponics bays. They clean the endless corridors, scrubbing away the blood, vomit, and worse that accumulates in a space housing hundreds of thousands. They handle corpses, for death is a daily occurrence aboard a battleship, and the bodies must be processed, their useful materials reclaimed, and the remainder disposed of through the correct channels. Living quarters for ordinary crew are Spartan at best and nightmarish at worst. Mid-level crewmen and petty officers might have bunks in actual berthing spaces, dormitory-style rooms where dozens sleep in cramped conditions but at least have dedicated sleeping areas. They share chemical toilets and washing facilities, fight over lockers for their meager possessions, and try to snatch what rest they can despite the constant noise and activity of a ship that never truly sleeps. The food they eat is institutional at best. Rations are dispensed from automated systems, nutritionally complete but barely palatable. On well-supplied ships, there might be some variation, perhaps meat from the ship's grox pens or vegetables from the hydroponics, but more often the menu consists of nutrient blocks, protein slurry, and recaf, that bitter stimulant beverage that keeps exhausted crew functional through endless watches. Water is rationed carefully, for even with recycling systems, there is only so much available, and every drop is precious. The lower class ratings, those conscripts and bondsmen pressed into service or born aboard the vessel, endure conditions far worse. They sleep on pallets in the holds, often sharing a single toilet facility between 10 or more people. Their rations are smaller and of even lower quality, barely enough to sustain life. They work the most dangerous and degrading tasks, spending their entire lives in darkness, never seeing the stars they travel between, never knowing anything beyond the bulkheads that enclose them. Many do not even have names, identified instead by numbers tattooed on their flesh or branded into their skin. And yet, astonishingly, this is considered an acceptable life by Imperial standards. For citizens of hive worlds, where billions live stacked atop one another in conditions of absolute squalor, service aboard a naval vessel can actually represent an improvement. At least on a ship, one has a purpose, however grim. At least there is structure, however brutal. At least there is the knowledge that one serves the Emperor, that one's suffering has meaning in the grand scheme of the Imperium's eternal war. The weapons systems of an Imperial battleship represent both the pinnacle of the Imperium's military technology and a testament to its preference for brute force over elegance. An Emperor-class battleship typically mounts multiple macro-cannon batteries along its broadside, each battery consisting of dozens of individual guns. These weapons, the workhorses of Imperial naval warfare, fire solid shells at enormous velocities, projectiles large enough to devastate entire city blocks when they strike their targets. The macro cannons themselves are monstrous constructions, gun barrels that can be over 50 meters long, mounted on recoil systems that must absorb the tremendous forces generated when they fire. Each gun is housed in its own compartment, a multi-level space that includes the weapon itself, ammunition storage, loading machinery, and quarters for the gun crew. The Mark VI Mars pattern. Macro cannon, the most common variant, fires kiloton-grade ordnance, shells that combine enormous kinetic energy with explosive warheads that can be either conventional or nuclear, depending on the tactical situation. Operating these weapons requires hundreds of crew per battery. Gun captains, typically grizzled petty officers with decades of experience, command teams that can number over 100 ratings. These teams handle every aspect of the weapon's operation, from loading and firing to maintenance and repair. The loading process is almost medieval in its brutality. Shells are brought up from magazines by work gangs straining against enormous weight. They are positioned beneath the gun using trolleys and lifts, then hoisted into the breech through sheer muscle power, supplemented by simple mechanical assistance. The shells themselves are objects of reverence as much as weapons. Each one is blessed before loading, prayers spoken over its casing, sacred seals affixed to ensure that it strikes true, and that its fury is directed by the Emperor's will. The crews who handle them are taught from their first day that these are not mere ammunition, but instruments of divine justice, tools through which the God Emperor's wrath is made manifest. This religious dimension permeates every aspect of gunnery operations, from the selection of targets to the rituals performed after each firing. When the order to fire comes, the gun deck transforms into organized chaos. Gun captains shout commands, their voices barely audible over the general clamor. Crews respond with practiced precision, pulling on firing mechanisms that send electrical impulses to the gun's ignition system. The macro cannon roars, a sound that transcends mere noise and becomes a physical force, a hammer blow that strikes every person in the vicinity. The recoil, despite massive damping systems, shakes the entire section of the ship. Smoke and steam fill the air, vented through enormous ducts, but never quite fast enough to clear the atmosphere before the next shell must be loaded. The rate of fire for these weapons is slow by the standards of more advanced races. A well-trained crew might achieve one shot every few minutes, and that only if everything goes perfectly. But what they lack in speed, they make up for in devastating power. A single macro cannon hit can cripple enemy vessels, tearing through armor and rupturing critical systems. A full broadside from an Emperor-class battleship, with all guns firing in coordination, can overwhelm even the most robust void shields and reduce the target to scrap. Lance weapons represent the Imperium's more sophisticated approach to void combat. These are directed energy weapons, massive laser arrays that can focus enormous amounts of power into a coherent beam. Lances are more accurate than macro cannons, capable of targeting specific systems on enemy vessels, and their energy beams travel at the speed of light, making them impossible to dodge at the ranges typical of void combat. However, they are also more delicate, requiring constant attention from tech priests and suffering from heat buildup that limits their firing rate. The lance batteries on an Emperor-class battleship are located deep within the hull, protected from enemy fire by layers of armor. The weapons themselves are technical marvels, cathedral-sized installations where enormous focusing crystals channel the output of dedicated plasma reactors into beams of coherent light. The crews who operate these weapons are among the most highly trained aboard the ship, selected for their ability to perform complex calculations and their steadiness under pressure. They work in concert with targeting cogitators and sensor arrays, identifying weak points in enemy shields and armor, then burning through them with lance fire. Torpedo tubes complete the battleship's offensive arsenal. These massive launch bays, located in the prow of the vessel, fire projectiles that are themselves small spacecraft. Imperial torpedoes are up to 60 meters long, powered by their own plasma drives, and equipped with sophisticated guidance systems. Each one carries a warhead powerful enough to crack a ship in half if it connects. The tubes themselves are engineering marvels, magnetic accelerators that fling torpedoes out into space at tremendous velocities before their own engines ignite. Loading a torpedo is a process that takes hours and requires the coordination of hundreds of crew. The weapons are stored in dedicated magazines, suspended in armored cradles, and moved to the launch tubes through a complex system of rails and lifts. Once in position, they must be armed, their guidance systems programmed, and their reactors brought online. Only then can they be fired, and even then, there is no guarantee they will reach their target. Enemy fighters, point defense systems, and the chaotic nature of void combat all conspire to destroy torpedoes before they can strike home. The crews who man these weapon systems understand that they are both privileged and cursed. Privileged because their skills make them valuable, because they receive better rations and quarters than menial workers. Cursed because when the ship goes into battle, they are the first to die. A direct hit on a gun deck or magazine can kill hundreds in an instant, vaporizing them or crushing them beneath collapsing bulkheads. The survivors must continue working, stepping over the bodies of their comrades, maintaining fire discipline even as the ship around them tears itself apart. This is the price of service aboard an Imperial battleship, and it is a price that is paid daily. Of all the burdens borne by those who serve aboard Imperial vessels, perhaps none is heavier than that which falls upon the navigators. These mutant psychers, born of ancient bloodlines, carefully preserved since before the age of strife, are the only humans capable of steering a ship through the warp without immediately losing it to the predations of that realm's denizens. Their third eye, the physical manifestation of their warp sight, allows them to perceive the currents of the Imperium, to read its treacherous tides, and to plot courses through that impossible dimension. The navigator's quarters aboard a battleship are unique. Situated as close to the ship's center as possible, they are heavily shielded both physically and psychically. Geller field generators surround the navigation sanctum, creating multiple layers of protection between the navigator and the warp's direct touch. The space itself is both a dwelling and a workspace, combining living quarters with the specialized equipment necessary for warp navigation. Here, in near total isolation, the navigator spends the journey, emerging only rarely and always under heavy guard. When the ship prepares to enter the warp, a complex ritual begins. The navigator takes their position in the navigation sanctum, a throne-like seat surrounded by sensor arrays and cogitator banks. They open their third eye, that terrible organ that marks them as both blessed and cursed, and extend their warp sight beyond the ship's hull. What they see defies description. The warp is not a place in any conventional sense. It has no fixed geography, no reliable landmarks, save for the Astronomicon, that psychic lighthouse maintained by the Emperor's will and the sacrifice of thousands of psychers daily. The Astronomicon appears to navigators as a light in the darkness, a golden beacon that cuts through the swirling madness of the warp. By fixing on this light and measuring its angle and intensity, a skilled navigator can determine the ship's position relative to Holy Terror and plot a course to their destination. But the light is not always clear. Warp storms can obscure it, the distance can dim it, and in the remote regions of space far from Terra, it fades to barely a glimmer. In such places, navigators must rely on skill, instinct, and desperate hope, following barely perceptible currents and trying to avoid the attention of the things that dwell in the warp. The psychological cost of this work is enormous. Every moment spent gazing into the warp exposes the navigator to visions of madness, to whispers from entities that should not exist, to sights that can break the sanest mind. Navigators are trained from childhood to resist these influences, taught meditative techniques and protective rituals, but nothing can fully prepare them for the reality. Many navigators develop eccentricities, strange behaviors, and beliefs that mark them as different, even among their already peculiar kind. Some go mad entirely, their minds shattered by prolonged exposure, and must be put down for the safety of the ship. But even with a skilled navigator, warp travel remains terrifyingly dangerous. The Geller field, that bubble of reality projected around the ship, is the only thing standing between the crew and the horrors of the Imperium. Should it fail, even for a moment, disaster follows with absolute certainty. Demons manifest throughout the ship, tearing through bulkheads as if they were paper, consuming souls and spreading corruption. Crew members are possessed or driven mad, turning on each other in orgies of violence. The ship's structure itself can warp and change. Passages leading to impossible spaces, dimensions folding in on themselves. The Imperial Navy accepts a certain percentage of ships as inevitable losses. Some simply never arrive at their destinations, swallowed by the warp without trace. Others emerge decades or centuries late, their crews long dead or transformed into things no longer human. Ghost ships drift through real space, their holds empty, save for bloodstains and the lingering scent of sulfur. These are the hazards of warp travel, accepted as the price of maintaining an empire that spans the galaxy. The crew, during warp transit, are encouraged to maintain routine as much as possible. Work continues, watches are kept, rituals are observed, but there is always an underlying tension, an awareness that they have left reality behind and entered a realm where the laws of nature no longer apply. Sleep becomes difficult. Strange dreams plague even those with no psychic sensitivity. Sounds echo through the corridors, footsteps when no one is there, whispers in languages that hurt to hear. The superstitious nature of Imperial culture, usually dismissed as simple ignorance, takes on new significance when the ship is in the warp. Prayers are not just comforting ritual, but genuine pleas for protection. Lucky charms and blessed tokens are not mere tradition, but tangible defenses against malevolent influence. The ship's astropaths, those sanctioned psychers responsible for long-range communication, suffer their own unique agonies during warp travel. Their gift, which allows them to project their thoughts across vast distances through the Imperium, becomes both more powerful and more dangerous when the ship is actually within the warp. They experience the warp directly, feeling its currents and tides, hearing the screams of the damned and the laughter of dark gods. Many astropaths go blind early in their service, their sight burned away during their soul binding with the Emperor on Terra. But in the warp, their psychic vision shows them things that physical eyes mercifully cannot perceive. Astropathic communication is essential to the functioning of the Imperium. Without these psychers, worlds would be isolated, unable to call for help or coordinate actions across the vast distances of space. The astropaths aboard a battleship form a choir, their combined psychic strength amplified through rituals and focus. When they send a message, they project it into the warp, where it travels as a psychic ripple that other astropaths, sometimes thousands of light years away, can receive and interpret. The process is exhausting and dangerous. Astropaths have been known to die in the attempt, their minds burned out by the effort, or worse, corrupted by the touch of warp entities drawn to their psychic light. The journey through the warp might last days, weeks, or months, depending on the distance traveled and the currents encountered. Time behaves strangely in that realm. The crew might experience a week-long voyage, only to emerge and discover that years have passed in real space, or the reverse. This temporal uncertainty is another source of stress for those who serve aboard void ships. Another reminder that they have left the comfortable certainties of the material universe behind. When the ship finally drops back into real space, breaching the boundary between dimensions at the system's Mandeville point, the relief is palpable. The Geller field can be deactivated. The navigator can close their third eye. The astropaths can rest. And the crew can once again believe, at least for a time, that the universe operates according to comprehensible rules. In the deepest reaches of the battleship, where few crew members venture unless assigned, lies the domain of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Here, among the plasma drives and power generators that give the ship life, the tech priests hold absolute authority. They are a strange and unsettling presence aboard any vessel, their bodies so heavily modified with augmetic implants that they seem more machine than human. Mechadendrites, those serpentine mechanical appendages, writhe from their backs and shoulders. Replacement limbs of steel and ceramite click and whir with each movement. Eyes have been replaced with targeting systems, lungs with more efficient respiratory apparatus, and entire sections of brain tissue supplanted with cogitators capable of processing information at superhuman speeds. The tech priests view the ship not as a vessel, but as a living entity, or at least something close to it. They speak of the machine spirit, that semi-mystical essence that inhabits all complex machinery, with reverence and awe. To them, the battleship is a temple, and they are its priesthood, devoted to its care and propitiation. This is not mere metaphor in their eyes. They genuinely believe that machines possess a form of consciousness, that they require not just maintenance but worship, and that only through proper ritual can the machine spirit be kept content and willing to perform its functions. The engine rooms are cathedral-like spaces, vaulted chambers that dwarf even the gun decks. At their heart burn the plasma drives, reactors that contain the fury of nuclear fusion, channeling it into thrust through principles that are only partly understood by those who maintain them. The heat is immense despite cooling systems, the radiation levels lethal to unprotected humans. Tech priests move through these spaces in specially warded robes, their augmetics allowing them to withstand conditions that would kill ordinary crew in minutes. The rituals performed here are elaborate and precise. Before the drives can be activated, prayers must be spoken, incense burned, sacred oils applied to specific components. The tech priests consult ancient manuals, their pages yellowed with age, written in High Gothic mixed with binary cant. They perform calculations on mechanical cogitators, the results verified 3 times according to forms established millennia ago. Nothing is done casually, nothing is improvised. Every action follows procedure laid down by those long dead, procedures that cannot be questioned because the understanding of why they work has been lost. Servitors make up the bulk of the workforce in these regions. These pitiful creatures, their minds erased and replaced with simple programming, perform the repetitive tasks that keep the engines running. They shovel fuel, turn valves, monitor pressure gauges, and carry out hundreds of other duties without complaint, rest, or need for sleep. They are tools, biological machinery, and the tech priests treat them as such. When a servitor fails, either through mechanical breakdown or because its organic components have finally expired, it is simply recycled, its useful parts salvaged, and the remainder processed into nutrients or raw materials. The creation of servitors is a grim business, though one the Adeptus Mechanicus considers both necessary and righteous. Criminals condemned to servitude have their brains surgically altered, their memories erased, their capacity for independent thought removed. What remains is a shell, capable of following orders, but incapable of disobedience, or even comprehending its own existence. For those who have offended against the Mechanicus, this fate is considered appropriate penance. For the tech priests who perform the surgery, it is an act of mercy, transforming the useless and corrupt into something that can serve the Omnissiah. The tech priests themselves form a hierarchy as rigid as that of the Naval Officer Corps. The ship's Engineer Prime, the most senior Mechanicus representative aboard, coordinates all technical operations and serves as liaison to the captain. Below him serve tech adepts of various ranks, each specializing in different systems. Some maintain the warp drives, those arcane mechanisms that tear holes in reality. Others tend the Geller field generators, those critical systems that protect the ship during warp transit. Still others oversee the weapon systems, ensuring that lances and macro cannons function when called upon. These tech priests are not Imperial Navy personnel. They answer to the Adeptus Mechanicus, to the Fabricator General on Mars, not to the captain or even to the Admiralty. This creates a unique dynamic aboard ship. The captain needs the tech priests, cannot function without their expertise, but cannot command them in the same way he commands naval crew. The relationship is negotiated, a form of feudal compact where the tech priests provide service in exchange for resources and respect for their autonomy. When it works, the arrangement is efficient. When it breaks down, ships have been known to operate with minimal technical support, their machinery slowly degrading until catastrophic failure becomes inevitable. The maintenance work never ends. A ship as vast and ancient as an Emperor-class battleship is in constant need of repair. Systems fail daily, pipes rupture, conduits burn out, bulkheads crack under stress. The tech priests and their servitor armies move through the ship in endless rounds, responding to failures, performing routine maintenance, and conducting the countless rituals that keep the machine spirit content. They are both engineers and priests, and in the Imperium, there is no meaningful distinction between those roles. The security apparatus aboard an Imperial battleship is extensive and brutal. The ship's armsmen, those ratings trained and equipped to fight borders and maintain internal order number in the thousands. They patrol the corridors in squads, armed with shotguns, shock mauls, and las weapons, their presence a constant reminder that order is maintained through force. They man checkpoints that control access to sensitive areas, inspect cargo for contraband, and respond to disturbances with overwhelming violence. The armsmen are commanded by the Master at Arms, typically a former guard officer or naval veteran with extensive combat experience. This officer coordinates defensive preparations, trains boarding parties for offensive operations, and works with the ship's security cogitators to track personnel throughout the vessel. The surveillance network aboard a battleship is comprehensive. Pict catchers, those camera systems that record everything, are mounted at strategic locations throughout the ship. Servitor skulls drift through the corridors, their optics recording and transmitting to central monitoring stations. Nothing happens aboard ship without someone, somewhere, being aware of it. But surveillance alone cannot maintain order. For that, the Imperium relies on terror. The fleet commissar, appointed by the Departamento Munitorum, has absolute authority to execute anyone deemed unreliable, cowardly, or potentially heretical. The commissar does not answer to the captain, though wise commissars work with ship leadership rather than against it. Their role is to ensure ideological purity, to root out heresy before it can spread, and to make examples of those who fail in their duty. Executions aboard ship are public affairs. When someone is condemned, they are brought to a central location where the crew can assemble to witness. The commissar reads the charges, explains the offense, and carries out sentence with a bolt pistol to the back of the head. The body is left on display for a period, a reminder of what happens to those who forget their duty. Only then is it removed, processed, and recycled. These executions are not frequent, but they are frequent enough. Morale is measured not in happiness, but in compliance, and compliance is enforced through fear. The ship's chaplain, the spiritual leader drawn from the ecclesiarchy, provides a counterbalance to the commissar's secular authority. Where the commissar enforces discipline through fear of death, the chaplain enforces it through fear of damnation. Services are held in the ship's chapels, spaces set aside throughout the vessel for worship. Attendance is mandatory for much of the crew, recorded and reported. The sermons emphasize duty, sacrifice, and the glory of serving the God Emperor. They remind the faithful that suffering in life is rewarded in death, that pain is temporary, but salvation eternal. The chaplain also serves as confessor, hearing the sins of the crew and offering absolution. This is not simply a religious function. Information gathered in confession can reveal dissent, heresy, or plots against the ship's command. Chaplains walk a fine line between spiritual guide and informant, and the best among them manage to be both, using their knowledge to protect the ship while still providing genuine spiritual comfort to those who need it. When the ship goes to battle, stations, all of these systems snap into even sharper focus. Security is tightened, with armsmen stationed at critical junctures ready to repel boarders. The commissar moves through the gun decks, visible to all, his presence both inspiring and terrifying. The chaplain conducts blessing ceremonies, anointing weapons and crew alike with holy oils. And in their sealed meditation chambers, the tech priests commune with the machine spirit, pleading for reliable function in the coming fight. Boarding actions, when they occur, are nightmarish affairs. Enemy troops, whether human renegades or alien warriors, breach the hull through violent means, cutting through armor with melters or plasma charges. They flood into the ship, seeking to capture critical systems or simply cause as much damage as possible before they are repelled. The armsmen must respond quickly, moving to contain the incursion before it spreads. Fights rage through the corridors, shotguns and laser guns flashing in the darkness. men screaming and dying in spaces where there is no room to maneuver. The ship's design aids defense. Bulkheads can be sealed, trapping invaders in isolated sections where they can be eliminated at leisure. Atmosphere can be vented, suffocating boarders who lack sealed armor. The armsmen know their ship intimately, using maintenance passages and hidden routes to outflank attackers. But these advantages come at a cost. Sealed bulkheads also trap loyal crew, and venting atmosphere kills indiscriminately. The calculus of ship defense is cold and brutal. Better to sacrifice a section of the ship and everyone in it than allow the enemy to capture something critical. After the battle, bodies are collected, damage assessed, and repairs begun. The dead are mourned in brief ceremonies, then recycled. Their gene seed, if they are Astartes, is harvested. Their equipment is salvaged and redistributed. Their names are recorded in the ship's log, one more entry in a list that grows longer with each engagement. And the ship sails on, because there is always another battle, another threat, another reason to maintain vigilance against a galaxy that wants nothing more than to tear the Imperium apart. The lower decks of an Imperial battleship are a world unto themselves, a dark labyrinth where the light of Imperial law and order barely penetrates. Here, in the deep holds and forgotten maintenance passages, tens of thousands of menial workers live lives that are brutal, even by the standards of the 41st millennium. They are the forgotten crew, the bondsmen and conscripts who keep the ship functioning through sheer physical labor, and they exist in conditions that would shock even hardened Imperial citizens. These workers are not volunteers. Many were pressed into service, rounded up from whatever world the ship happened to be orbiting when it needed crew. The process is simple and efficient. Naval press gangs, accompanied by local authorities, sweep through population centers, identifying suitable candidates. The criteria are basic: able-bodied, young enough to be useful, and expendable. Family connections, prior employment, personal wishes, all of these are irrelevant. The Imperium needs crew, and these people will serve whether they wish to or not. Once aboard, they are given the most minimal training. They learn to respond to basic orders, to recognize warning klaxons, and to perform whatever specific task they have been assigned. They might spend their entire lives hauling ammunition, shoveling fuel, or cleaning waste systems, never learning anything else, never being given the opportunity to advance. The system is not designed to develop talent, but to extract labor until the worker either dies or becomes too infirm to continue. Their living conditions reflect this brutal utility. The deep holds where they sleep are vast, echoing spaces filled with the sound of machinery and the smell of unwashed humanity. Pallets are arranged in rows, each one barely a meter wide, spaced so tightly that workers must step over sleeping neighbors to reach their own. There is no privacy, no personal space, no dignity. Theft is common, disputes settled through violence because there is no authority here that cares about fairness, only productivity. Food for these workers is minimal and of the lowest quality. Nutrient slurry, protein paste, and occasionally corpse starch, that grimly practical recycled material made from processed human remains. Water is rationed strictly, just enough to keep workers functional. Many suffer from chronic malnutrition, their bodies slowly consuming themselves, but as long as they can still work, the overseers do not care. Only when productivity drops below acceptable levels does the ship command take notice, and then only to replace the failing workers with new conscripts. Disease is rampant in the lower decks. Overcrowding, poor sanitation, and weakened immune systems create perfect conditions for contagion. Illnesses that would be easily treatable sweep through the work gangs, killing dozens or hundreds before running their course. The ship has medici staff, but their attention is reserved for skilled crew and officers. Menial workers receive medical attention only if their condition threatens to spread to more valuable personnel. Otherwise, they are left to recover or die on their own. Despite these conditions, or perhaps because of them, a culture exists in the lower decks. Workers band together in informal groups, gangs that provide some measure of protection and mutual support. These organizations often coalesce around strong individuals, those who through strength, cunning, or force of personality can command loyalty. They establish territories within the holds, controlling access to the better sleeping spaces, the less contaminated water sources, and the occasional luxuries that make their way down from above. The overseers who manage these workers are themselves drawn from the lower decks, promoted based on their willingness to enforce discipline without mercy. They carry shock prods and whips, authorized to use whatever force is necessary to maintain productivity. They are hated, but also feared, and smart workers learn quickly to avoid their attention. The overseers report to warrant officers, who in turn report up the chain of command, but at each level, the actual conditions in the holds become more abstract, reduced to numbers on reports, productivity rates, mortality percentages, efficiency metrics. Occasionally, the conditions in the lower decks become untenable. Resentment builds until it explodes into open revolt. These mutinies are always doomed. The mutineers have no weapons beyond improvised tools, no organization beyond their rage, and nowhere to go, even if they somehow seized control of their section. The response from ship security is overwhelming and brutal. Armsmen flood the rebellious areas, shooting anyone who resists and executing ringleaders publicly. The surviving workers are beaten back into submission, their meager possessions confiscated, their rations reduced further as punishment. And yet, incredibly, life continues. Workers find small ways to maintain their humanity. They tell stories, passing down memories of worlds they have left behind, or creating new legends about the ship itself. They form relationships, falling in love despite the impossibility of privacy or permanence. They pray, not in the ship's official chapels, but in hidden spaces, where they erect crude shrines to the Emperor, seeking comfort in faith, even when that faith offers them nothing in this life but the promise of reward in death. The ship command is aware of these conditions, but considers them acceptable. The lower deck workers are expendable resources, no different from ammunition or fuel. They are used until they are used up, then replaced. This has been the way of the Imperial Navy for 10,000 years, and no one with the power to change it sees any reason to do so. The system works by the Imperium standards. Ships function, battles are fought, and if the human cost is staggering, well, humanity has always been the Imperium's most abundant resource. When battle stations are called, when the ship's klaxons wail and every crew member races to their assigned position, the battleship transforms from a floating city into a weapon of singular purpose. The carefully maintained routines of daily life evaporate, replaced by a choreographed chaos that has been drilled into the crew through endless exercises and actual combat. Every person aboard knows their role, knows what is expected, and knows that failure means death, not just for themselves, but potentially for the entire ship. On the command deck, the transformation is most visible. Officers take their stations around the command throne, each one responsible for a specific aspect of the ship's operation. The Master of Ordnance coordinates fire control, receiving, targeting data from the sensors officer and translating it into firing solutions for the gun decks. The Master of the Helm works with the navigator to position the ship optimally, balancing the need to bring weapons to bear against the equally critical need to avoid enemy fire. The Master of the Vox manages communications, relaying orders to every section of the ship while monitoring reports from department heads. The Captain, from his throne, orchestrates this symphony of violence. His decisions come rapidly, based on decades of experience and an intimate knowledge of his ship's capabilities. He calls for speed increases or decreases, orders specific weapon batteries to fire, authorizes boarding actions or defensive preparations. His word is absolute, his commands executed without question or hesitation. In battle, there is no time for debate, no possibility of democratic decision-making. The captain rules, and the ship obeys. On the gun decks, the atmosphere is electric, with anticipation and fear. The crews have prepared their weapons, performed the rituals, loaded the first shells. Now they wait for targeting solutions, for the order to fire. When it comes, they execute with practiced precision. The macro cannons roar in sequence, their fury directed at targets hundreds or thousands of kilometers distant. The crews do not see the results of their efforts. They cannot know if their shells struck home, if they destroyed enemy vessels or missed entirely. They simply load the next shell, perform the firing ritual, and wait for the next command. The concussion from the guns firing ripples through the entire ship. Even crew stationed kilometers from the gun decks feel it, a tremor that shakes loose dust from ancient bulkheads and reminds everyone that they are in a battle that could end their lives at any moment. The noise is beyond description, a sustained thunder that goes on for hours if the engagement is prolonged, punctuated by the scream of lance weapons firing and the deeper boom of torpedo launches. Damage is inevitable in any serious engagement. Enemy fire finds its mark despite the best efforts of helm officers and the protection of void shields. When a shell penetrates the armor or a lance beam burns through multiple decks, the destruction is catastrophic. Entire sections can be depressurized in seconds, their occupants blown into space or crushed by sudden pressure differentials. Fires break out, fed by oxygen and the countless combustible materials that fill a ship. Bulkheads collapse, trapping crew in isolated pockets where they will slowly suffocate unless rescue comes quickly. Damage control teams race to contain these disasters. They seal breaches with emergency patches, vent fires into space, and rescue survivors when possible. The work is desperate and dangerous. Damage control crew wear crude void suits, barely adequate protection against vacuum and radiation. They crawl through twisted wreckage, past the bodies of their comrades, driven by training and the knowledge that if they fail, the entire section might be lost. The medici stations, those spaces set aside for treating the wounded, overflow with casualties. Surgeons and medici assistants work without rest, performing battlefield amputations, treating burns, and deciding who can be saved and who must be left to die. The triage is brutal. Those with minor injuries are patched up and sent back to their stations. Those with serious but treatable injuries receive care. Those who are too badly hurt, who would require too much time and too many resources to save, are given pain suppressants and moved to a separate area where they will die as comfortably as possible. And through it all, the battle continues. Hours can pass, entire days if the engagement is particularly fierce. Crews work until they collapse from exhaustion, are revived with stimulants, and continue working. The ship's interior becomes a nightmare landscape of smoke, blood, and screaming wounded. The stench is overwhelming, a mixture of burned flesh, propellant smoke, and human waste from those who have lost control of their bodily functions in the terror of combat. Victory, when it comes, brings a surge of relief so intense that many crew members simply collapse where they stand. The enemy has been driven off or destroyed, the immediate threat ended, but victory also brings the grim accounting of cost. The dead must be counted, often running into thousands. The wounded must be treated or granted the Emperor's mercy if their injuries are too severe. The damage must be assessed, critical systems prioritized for repair, and decisions made about whether the ship can continue operations or must withdraw to a naval base for proper refit. The captain, if he has survived, moves through the ship in the aftermath, showing himself to the crew, offering words of encouragement and acknowledging their sacrifice. This is not mere theatre, though it serves that purpose. It is necessary. The crew must see that their commander is alive, that he shares their danger, and that their suffering has meaning. Without this visible demonstration of shared purpose, the fragile bonds that hold the crew together might fracture, and a crew that has lost faith in its commander is a crew that cannot be trusted to fight the next battle. In the vast darkness of the void, where the light of the Astronomicon barely reaches, and the enemies of mankind gather like wolves around a dying fire, the Imperial battleships stand as monuments to humanity's refusal to yield. They are terrible in their majesty, awesome in their power, and horrifying in the human cost they exact. Every one of these vessels represents the labor of tens of thousands of workers, the resources of entire star systems, and a technological tradition that stretches back to the dark age of technology, when humanity still dreamed of better things. But they are more than just ships. They are societies, complete unto, themselves containing within their armored hulls the full spectrum of human experience. From the admirals who command them to the bondsmen who scrub their decks, from the navigators who guide them through the warp to the servitors who maintain their machinery, every soul aboard plays a role in keeping these vessels functional and deadly. The hierarchy that governs their operation is rigid, brutal, and unforgiving, but it is also the only way the Imperium knows to maintain discipline among hundreds of thousands of individuals pressed into service across a vessel kilometers long. The daily life of those who serve is one of grinding routine, punctuated by moments of absolute terror. The work never ends. The watches continue around the clock. The maintenance is constant. The drilling and preparation for battle consume any time that might otherwise be spent in rest or recreation. And when battle comes, as it inevitably does, the crew must perform flawlessly despite exhaustion, fear, and the knowledge that death could come at any moment from a breach in the hull or a direct hit from enemy fire. The psychological toll of this existence is immense. Many crew members serve for their entire adult lives, born aboard ship or pressed into service from some distant world, and they never see anything else. The corridors and compartments of the battleship become their entire universe. They do not know the feel of natural sunlight or the smell of fresh air. They have never walked on solid ground or seen an ocean or felt rain. Their world is one of artificial gravity, recycled atmosphere, and the constant background hum of machinery. Yet somehow, astonishingly, they endure. Human beings have a remarkable capacity to adapt to even the most dire circumstances, to find meaning and purpose in situations that should break their spirits entirely. The crew of an Imperial battleship form bonds with one another, connections forged in shared suffering that can be stronger than any family tie. They develop traditions, unique cultures that exist nowhere else in the galaxy. They tell stories, sing songs, and keep alive the memories of worlds they have left behind or never knew in the first place. The Imperium, for all its brutality and indifference to individual suffering, understands the need for these human connections. It permits the formation of informal hierarchies within the crew, allows the development of ship-specific traditions, and even tolerates a certain amount of minor deviation from regulations as long as discipline and efficiency are maintained. The smart captains know that a crew that has developed its own identity, its own pride in the ship, and their role within it, will fight harder and endure more than one that is simply cowed into obedience through fear alone. This is not to romanticize the reality of life aboard an Imperial battleship. It remains a harsh existence, one that grinds down those who live it and consumes them without hesitation. The mortality rate is staggering. Disease, accidents, combat casualties, and simple exhaustion kill crew members daily. Most will never see retirement, never return to their homeworlds, never know anything beyond the ship that has become both their sanctuary and their prison. They will die in service, their bodies processed and recycled, their names recorded in logs that no one will ever read, forgotten except perhaps by a few comrades who will themselves soon follow. But their service matters. In a galaxy where humanity is beset on all sides by enemies that vastly outnumber it, where alien empires command resources and technologies that dwarf anything the Imperium can muster, where the forces of chaos constantly seek to corrupt and destroy, the Imperial Navy stands as one of the few effective defenses against annihilation. The battleships, with their massive firepower and their ability to project power across entire star systems, are essential to maintaining the Imperium's borders and responding to threats before they can become existential. Every shell fired from a macro cannon, every lance beam that burns through enemy armor, every torpedo that strikes home is the result of the efforts of hundreds or thousands of individual crew members working in coordination. The officer who calculates the firing solution, the rating who loads the shell, the tech priest who maintains the firing mechanism, the menial worker who carries ammunition from the magazines. All of them contribute to that single moment of violence. And that violence, multiplied across hundreds of vessels over thousands of battles, is what keeps humanity's enemies at bay. The battleship is the Imperium in miniature, displaying both its greatest strengths and its most profound failings. Its strength lies in its ability to take diverse individuals, bind them together through discipline and shared purpose, and weld them into a functional organization capable of incredible feats. Its failing lies in the cost exacted to achieve this, the human suffering that is considered acceptable as long as the machine continues to function. The Imperium measures success not in happiness or prosperity, but in survival, and by that metric, the system works. Humanity endures, the ships sail, the war continues. For those who find themselves aboard an Imperial battleship, there is a strange paradox at the heart of their existence. They are simultaneously expendable and essential, individuals whose lives matter little in the grand scheme, yet whose collective efforts are critical to the Imperium's survival. They live with the knowledge that they could die at any moment, yet they continue to perform their duties with a dedication that outsiders might find incomprehensible. They are prisoners of a system that values them only for their labor, yet they often develop genuine pride in their ship and their role within it. This is the reality of life aboard an Imperial battleship in the grim darkness of the far future. It is not glorious, despite the propaganda. It is not clean or simple or easy. It is hard, brutal work performed under conditions that push human endurance to its limits. It is a life of constant danger, grinding routine, and the ever-present knowledge that the universe is vast and hostile and utterly indifferent to individual suffering. But it is also a life of purpose, of service to something larger than oneself, of camaraderie forged in the furnace of shared hardship, and in the Imperium of man, where hope is a luxury few can afford. That sense of purpose might be the most valuable thing any human being can possess. The stars shine cold and distant in the void. The warp roils with malevolence just beyond the thin barrier of reality. Enemies gather in numbers beyond counting, their intentions clear and their mercy non-existent. Against these threats stand the ships of the Imperial Navy, those massive constructs of metal and faith, crewed by hundreds of thousands of souls who will never be remembered individually, but whose collective sacrifice makes survival possible. This is the price of empire. This is the cost of humanity's continued existence. And aboard every battleship, in every watch, during every voyage through the warp, that price is paid in full. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the brutal reality of life aboard an Imperial battleship, please like and subscribe to Stories of Hammer for more explorations of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Until next time, may the Emperor protect you.